Welcome friends. In this video we are going to look at biology paper 1 for the year 2018, and here we are dealing with a paper that was written by the internals. Now let's look at the first question. Which of the following characteristics of living organisms is defined by the ability to detect and respond to stimulus? So the answer here is just A. Whenever we look at irritability, also you may find it as a sensitivity. So this is the response or the ability to detect and respond to stimuli. Because movement, we are looking at from one position to another. Nutrition, feeding, respiration has to do with the production of energy from food. Now we move on to question 2. The diagram below shows two different cells. So by the shape of the first one, we can see that this is a plant cell. So we can see that it's regular in shape. Then here we have animal cell because it is irregular in shape. Which feature is found in both of the cells? So the question is just which feature from the given multiple choices is found in both plants and animals. So the answer is here is A. Cell membrane is found in both plant cells and animal cells. Okay, so now we can move on to question 3. A piece of plant tissue is transferred from a beaker of pure water, from a beaker of pure water into a beaker containing 20% salt solution. Which of the following correctly explains what happened in this experiment? So let's see if we can have an illustration. So when this tissue was in a pure water, we can see that it gained a lot of water. Then if the same tissue is taken into a solution where we have 20% of salt solution, so this means that there is a higher concentration of water molecules in these cells. So the water will move from the tissue into the surrounding solution. So that is what the question, the point here is. So the first column here is movement of water. The second one is volume of tissue cells. So movement of water enters the cell, no. Enters the cell, no. Leaves the cell, yes. So C or D. Then what will happen to the cell? It will decrease. So the answer here is C, because after it has lost water, the cell decreases in size. Then we'll have question 4. The diagram below shows an experiment on the digestion of protein in an egg albumin by Proteus. The proteus was taken from the stomach of a human being, in which test tube will the protein be digested most quickly. So the first test tube A will have egg albumin and proteus. Then for B we have egg albumin plus hydrochloric acid. Then for this one we have egg albumin, hydrochloric acid and proteus. Then for D we have egg albumin plus hydrochloric acid plus boiled D proteus. Now let's look at the temperature of water. So the temperature water bath is at 37 degrees Celsius. Now here we are told boiled D proteus. So in this one there is no reaction because it has been denatured. The enzymes has been denatured because of the boiled proteus. So the best answer here is we are going to have C, because we need hydrochloric acid to provide the optimum temperature, the optimum pH for the proteus to operate. We can now move on to question 5. Different food samples were tested for their nutrition content. The test results were recorded in the table below. Which food sample contains both glucose and oil? So if you look at the glucose can be determined by iodine solution. Now, if you look at multiple choice, we know that here there is a mark. This means that whatever food sample we are looking at must have starch, glucose, the same. Then here, for test for glucose, for oil, goes with the ethanol emulsion test. So here we are going to have oil. So we need to have a presence observation here. So the answer here is B. Because whenever we look at Benedict's test, we are looking at the reducing sugar. So in whatever food where there is reducing sugar, there is glucose. Then burette, no, burette is the test for proteins. Then here, so the answer is B. Okay, so now we move on to question 6. The table below shows the amount of protein and fat in a 100-gram sample of foods. Okay, so we can see that the first one, meat, 18.0 grams of proteins, 17.0 grams of fat, bread, 9.0 of grams proteins, then 1.5 grams of fat, fish, 18.0 protein, then 0.5 grams of fat, eggs, 13.0 grams of proteins and 11.0 fats. Okay, then for potato chips, 4.0. Then the question is, which foods have the best value for bodybuildings? So whenever we look at bodybuildings, we are looking at where there is the highest presence of protein. So we can see that here we have 18. So meat is our answer. Then apart from meat, which one do we think can we go for? So between fish and eggs, which one is highly in terms of bodybuilding? So the answer is eggs. Why? Because we can see that there is 11.0 grams of fat. Then for fish, there is 0.5. So the balancing number here is meat and eggs. So our answer is C. Then we move on to question 7. What are the effects of lack of magnesium ions and nitrate ions to plant growth? So lack of magnesium ions is that whenever there is lack of these ions in plants, the leaves go yellow. So our answer here is A. Because lack of nitrate ions will unable to form enzymes. So this has to do with the formation of enzymes, which is the proteins. So in some books you may find the importance of nitrate ions. It is used in the formation of proteins. Then proteins are what? The enzyme. Because one of the characteristics of enzymes, we say enzymes are proteins in nature. Then we move on to question 8. The diagram below shows an experiment to investigate photosynthesis. The flask containing leaf P had potassium hydroxide solution, while the flask containing leaf Q had the water. Okay, so now here, leaf P, there is potassium hydroxide solution. The purpose of potassium hydroxide solution is to remove carbon dioxide. So this means that in this plant there is no carbon dioxide. Then for the other one we may have carbon dioxide. Now let's look at the question. After exposing the potted plant to sunlight for 10 hours, leaf P had no starch, while leaf Q contained a lot of starch. What does this show? Remember, we said here under leaf P we cannot expect to have starch because there is no carbon dioxide, and carbon dioxide is an essential element or requirement that is needed for photosynthesis to take place. So the answer here is B. A leaf cannot make starch without carbon dioxide. Then we move on to question 9. What do we call the type of symbiotic relationship in which one species benefits from another species without either harming or benefiting that other species? So we have amensalism. This one is where one benefits and the other one is affected. So the answer is commensalism, where one benefits but it doesn't cause any harm. Which part of the tooth is the hardest? So we know that this is the enamel. Then we move on to question 11. The diagram below shows part of the alimentary canal in the human body. So let's look at these structures. Our A is the liver, and we also have to look at and know the functions of the liver. Then our D will have gallbladder. Then our C is pancreas. The pancreas produces pancreatic juice. Then our B will have the stomach. Now let's look at the question. Which of the labeled parts produces an acidic juice? Acidic. So the acidic is produced in the stomach. So the answer here is B. Then 12. Gaseous exchange in an insect is mostly achieved by, here is diffusion. There is no transport. There is no, like the way we have in human beings, where we know that the blood, one of the functions of blood is to transport gases such as oxygen. Then we move on to question 13. Yeast, warm water and substance C were put in a test tube. The apparatus was then set up as shown below. After a while, the lime water began to go cloudy. So whenever we have a cloudy solution, or whenever lime water changes to cloudy, this is same as lime water turns milky. So what makes the lime water to change milky is due to the presence of carbon dioxide. So this means that there was a gas that was produced, and this gas passes through this delivery tube into the lime water. So after this carbon dioxide reacted with lime water, then we have to observe the change into cloudy. So what is substance Z? So meaning here we have to look at is here warm water. So what substance can be combined with yeast and warm water to produce carbon dioxide? So the answer here is just glucose. Why? We know that if we react glucose plus water plus yeast, this will give us the alcohol. So this is a fermentation process plus the gas carbon dioxide, and this carbon dioxide is the gas that is now making the lime water to change into cloud solution. Then 14. Which of the following is not a myth about HIV and AIDS? It is transmitted by. So a myth is something like just a saying. In actual sense, it's not true. So A, casual shaking of hands. So this is a myth because the HIV cannot be transmitted through shaking of hands, hugging, no. C, sexual intercourse is our answer. This is a true point. Then we move on to question 15. Roots of a seedling were placed in a solution containing red dye as shown below. What was the path of the red dye after it had entered the roots? So after since red dye is a liquid, after osmosis, the red dye must enter into the xylem. Then the xylem must transport that to the leaves. So we'll say xylem in root, then xylem in stem. So our answer is D. The point here is the movement of a solution or a liquid is always in xylem. Okay, we can now move on to question 16. Which component of blood helps to absorb huge amount of oxygen? A. Plasma proteins. B. Platelets. C. Red blood cells. So our answer is C. Because red blood cells has to do with the transportation of oxygen. 17. The diagram below shows a section through the human heart. Okay. What happens to the valves R and S as blood leaves the right ventricle? So here, this is our left ventricle. Then we have our right ventricle here. Then we have left atrium, right atrium. Now the key point here is these two valves, they work antagonistically. So this will say this point has, if one opens, the other one must close. So the point is leaves the right ventricle. So for blood to move from the right ventricle into the right atrium, it has to go in this direction. So in moving in this direction, this must close. Why must this valve close? To prevent the blood from going back into this vessel here. So that is the point here. Okay, so that is the point here. So now this must close, this must open. So valve S closes, then R opens. S closes, R opens. So our answer is C. Okay, so now we move on to question 18. The diagram here shows a simple dialysis machine. Okay, so we can see blood in, X, then blood out here. Then dialysis fluid out, dialysis fluid in. Which substance in blood at X which should not be found in blood at Y? So the substance that we don't want here is it is just the waste product. The reason why we are using this, so the answer is D, urea. We don't want urea, so that's the reason why we are using a machine, so that we get rid of urea. 19, the graph shows the changes in blood sugar concentration during periods of rest and light exercise. Then okay, we can see the change. So this means that there was a high blood sugar concentration, then there was a drop of this, then after P there was another increase. So now let's look at the questions. So which of the following could have caused the change in blood sugar level between P and Q? So between P and Q we can see that the blood sugar is increasing. Okay, if the blood sugar is increasing, let's look at the multiple choices. A, glucagon released by the liver. So what is the function of glucagon? Converts glycogen back to glucose. Okay, then B, glucose released by the liver. Then C, glycogen released by the muscles. The glycogen converts the glucagon back to glucose. We have glucagon is the hormone, glycogen released by the muscles. Glycogen released by the muscles. Then D, insulin. So the insulin converts the glucose into glycogen. So the answer must be A, because whenever we have glucagon, we'll change the glycogen back to glucose so that we may have at least a higher concentration. Though C seems also to be an answer here. Glycogen released by the muscles, glucagon released by the liver. Glucagon. Okay, so I'm sure the answer must be C, because glucagon is the hormone produced by the pancreas. The pancreas produces insulin and glucagon. So the answer is glycogen released by the muscles, not A. Then we can move on to question 20. The diagram below shows a reflex arc. Okay, so our D, structure D, this is not the answer, I'm just trying to label it. Structure D is gray matter. Then what's our C? This is relay neuron. Then our A is sensory. Why do we say sensory? Because it is carrying impulses toward the central nervous system. Then our B is motor, because it is carrying. So which structure is a motor neuron? So the answer is B. Then we move on to question 21. The diagram below shows a section through the human brain. Which part controls the balance and the muscular coordination? So we are dealing with cerebellum. So the structure that represents cerebellum is structure C. 22. What is the function of the eustachian tube in the inner eye? Inner ear. So A, to direct excess sound out of the air. No, to equalize the air pressure on the eardrum. Yes. So it has to do with it to equalize the outside air with the inside air. Then 23. The following diagram shows the bones of a human arm. So our one is scapula. Then our 2 is humerus. Then our 3 is ulna. Then the one on top is radius. So it's scapula, humerus, ulna. So let's look at the question. What is the question? What are the numbered bones? So what did we say? 1 is scapula. So 1 is scapula. 1 is scapula. 2 is humerus. Okay, 3 is ulna. We move on to question 24. The following diagram shows invertebrates in a glass container and exposed to light. Then we can see that here there is a black cover. So this means that light cannot enter. So whenever we don't have light, we can see where these invertebrates are. Then after they open, then we can see the invertebrates have moved to a dark region. They have moved to a region where there is no light. So what is this interpretation? So which response is exhibited by these invertebrates? So the stimulus is light. Now since they are moving away from light, this will be negative. So we are going to have negative phototoxic. So why do we say phototoxic? Because there is a movement of the whole body from one position to another. Phototropism has to do with a plant where it only bends. So whenever an organism moves with the entire body from that position to another position, that is toxic. Like the behavior of cockroaches. Whenever you switch on the light, you see the cockroaches runs into the area where there is no light. So that is a negative phototoxic, because they are responding by moving away from light. Then 25, the diagram below shows a seedling. Which party is the plumule? So let's look at our D, roots, then B, C. So the plumule is just A. The plumule change into a shoot system, radicle change into a root system. Then our B, this should be cotyledon, which stores the nutrients needed by the seed. Then our C, this must be micropyle. Micropyle is the passage for water and air. Then 26, in addition to seedable temperature, which other factors are necessary for seed germination? So A, carbon dioxide and sunlight. B, mineral ions only. C, sunlight only. D, water and oxygen. So we need the water. Water is needed to soften the tester, then to dissolve certain solutes. Apart from dissolving certain solutes, also to cool, to reduce the temperature of a seed so that the enzymes can operate effectively. Then also for metabolic processes. Then for oxygen is needed for respiration, because the embryo in a seed has to respire for it to germinate. Which method of natural propagation is illustrated in the diagram below? So here we are dealing with a runner. We can see it is horizontal. This is a runner. Then 28, the following diagram shows a longitudinal section of a flower on which structure would pollen grains be deposited. So the answer is A. This is a stigma. So the function of the stigma receives the pollen grains. Then our B, this is the anther. Then the anther is the male part which produces pollen grain. The stigma is the female which receives. Then our C is the star, which is the passage. Our D is the ovary. Ovary contains the ovules that become seeds after fertilization. So the answer is A, which is stigma. The diagram below shows two fruits. Okay, so we have, I'm sure this is a sycamore. W is a sycamore. X is should be a blackjack. Then how are these fruits dispersed? Then for sycamore, we can see a leaf-like structure, so it's wind. Then for that one is animals, so the answer is C. The diagram below shows the side view of a female reproductive system, in which labeled part is the zygote formed. Is the zygote formed? So D, we are dealing with D should be, what is this structure? So our D should be vagina or cervix. Then our A has to do with the uterus, which is the endometrium. Then our C, we are dealing with ovary, which produces ovum and the other hormones. Then our B is the oviduct. This is where fertilization occurs. So then after fertilization, the egg is known as a zygote. So the answer is B. Then 31, the diagram below shows a calendar for March and April with 4 days shaded. Menstruation for a woman started on day 14, during which of these shaded days was the lining of the uterus at its thickest and richest in blood. So this, for us to have thickest and richest in blood, those are the days when we are closer to ovulation. Because if you look at ovulation, we are looking at the release of a mature egg. So we can say in the average from day 1 to day 5, we have menstruation. Then 6 up to somewhere up to 12. So 12, 13, 14, 15. This may be considered as the ovulation. Then up 28, we have another another menstrual cycle. So this is on the average. We're not saying this is can be obeyed to any woman. No, this is just on the average. So on average, women have at least 28 days where we can count this menstrual cycle. Now let's now analyze this. If the menstruation is on day 14, when of day 14 in terms of March, so when will there be likely to have ovulation? So we need to count from 14 of March. So we'll count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So you can see that on this shaded part here, day 15, it's day 12, which is day 12 is part of ovulation, and during ovulation the female body is at its best in order to facilitate the growth of a baby in a womb. So we are expecting the question is, during which of this shaded was the lining? So this is expected to be on 15th of April. So the answer is D. 32. Which method of contraception is the most effective in preventing the spread of diseases such as syphilis and AIDS? So diaphragm, this one prevents only pregnancies. Male condom is our answer. Then which of the following is obtained when a diploid cell undergoes meiosis? So the first one, genetically different diploid. No, genetically different haploid. Yes, here. Then we go to 34. A pure breeding tall plant was crossed with a pure breeding dwarf plant of the same species. The resulting seeds were collected and grown to produce the next generation. What were the approximate percentage of the tall and dwarf offspring? So we'll begin with the first pure. So we use capital letter T for pure tall, small letter T for pure dwarf. So we are going to have heterozygous for tall for the first generation of the offspring. We are going to have this. Now the question is, we have to look at to use these F1 to be as our next parent. So say we know that we are going to have this heterozygous, since we are looking at the resulting seeds were collected and grown. So let's look at the percentage. So here we have pure tall, here we have heterozygous, here we have heterozygous, then here we have pure short. Then percentage of tall offspring, percentage of dwarf offspring. So dwarf, there is only 1, so it's 1/4 times 100% will give us 25%. Now here they have not specified whether it's pure. The key is as long as tall, it's 1, 2, 3. So it's 3/4 times 100%. This will give us 75%. So the answer is B. Then 35. What is the correct order of arthropods from those with the most legs to those with the fewest legs? So we have arachnids, crustaceans, insect, myriapods. No. So we just have to jump to the answer is D, because myriapods are the organisms or arthropods with the highest number of legs. They in some books you may find it, they have about 40. These may contain 40 legs. Then followed by the crustaceans about 10, arachnids about 8, then insects about 6. The following diagram shows an experiment conducted to find the proportion of one component in a soil sample. So here we have water, then we add the soil. Then we can see that after the soil was added, we can see the volume of water. So let's look at first, before the soil was added, the volume of water was 30. Then after the soil was added, then the volume of water on top is from 30 to 50. So there is 20 here. So this means that in the soil there was a certain percentage of water. As a result, that percentage was occupied already. That's why there was water above the soil. Then for 37, dung beetles lay their eggs in the dung of plant-eating mammals like cattle. Both the adult beetles and their young stage eat the undigested food in the dung. Which of the following shows this feeding relationship? So, dung beetles lay their eggs in the dung of plant-eating mammals like cattle. So both the adult beetle and their young stages eat the undigested food in the dung. So we have cattle, dung, no, dung. So here, whenever we are looking at the feeding relationship or food chain, always remember that you need to start with a producer. The producer has to be the plants. So here, let's look at which is eating it. So dung beetles lay their eggs in the dung of plant eating mammals, of plant eating mammals like cattle. So of plant eating mammals like cattle. So what is the relationship here? So the cattle are feeding on the plant. The dung are also feeding on that. So okay, I'm trying to understand it. So the dung. So for the dung, these are just small organisms that feed on the waste product produced by the cattle. So the answer will go with this one here. So we'll look at the cattle feeds on grass, then they produce the waste products such as the feces, then the dung beetle will feed on that. So this is the best answer here. Then 38, the diagram below shows part of a nitrogen cycle. Which of the processes labeled is nitrification? So nitrification, we are looking at the conversion of nitrogen from its gaseous state into its nitrate state, which is a salt here. So let's look at soil nitrates into nitrogen gas. This is denitrification. Then nitrogen gas into proteins in organisms. No, then first let's look at this one. Then we have C, proteins in organisms, to ammonia. Then from ammonia to soil nitrates. So the answer is D. The diagram below shows 4 positions on a river where water samples were taken. Direction of water. So here, then here we can see untreated sewage outlet. Okay, let's look at it. Which graph describes the oxygen concentrations in the river? So A, here we have A. You can see that there is high, no, then B, there is high, X, no. So whenever we have untreated sewage oxygen, we are going to have less oxygen. We are going to have less oxygen because of the bacteria. So what can be the answer? So the answer is C, because we can see that there is high, then at YX, then the oxygen drops. The last one, which of the following must be controlled to protect the habitat of an endangered species? So we have decomposition, nitrogen fixation, pollution, rainfall. So we can control pollution because the rest cannot be controlled. So that's it for this video. Thanks for watching.